Good morning. My name is Michelle Rempel Garner, and I'm the Member of Parliament for Calgary-Nose Hill and the Conservative immigration critic. I'm joined today by MP Garnet Jennis, the Conservative Shadow Minister for Employment, to help make an important announcement that will give some hope back to young Canadians. And boy, do they ever need some hope. Many young Canadians can't imagine buying a home or starting a family without a good-paying job. Yet they can't secure those jobs without experience, which they can't gain because they can't find an entry-level job. It wasn't always this way, though. Once upon a time, not long ago, if you were a young Canadian, you could earn vital skills in an entry-level job and earn enough to pay for school while saving. In return, employers would benefit from a skilled, productive domestic labor workforce. But that social contract has been broken by the Liberals. Canada is experiencing a staggering youth unemployment crisis. And all summer, we heard countless gut-punching stories about young Canadians who have put out hundreds of resumes without getting as much as a single callback. Behind me are some of those young people. We have Sana Shahid, who's worked in quality assurance and has not been able to find work in over a year. We have Aruma Dana, who completed security guard training, yet still can't find permanent work. And we also have Gabrielle James, who completed specialized training in analysis and reporting, and yet can't find stable employment. These folks want to work. They've made the right decisions, they did their training, but they still can't get a leg up. Things are so bad that 1 in 5 students are returning to school this week who looked for a job this summer and didn't find one, in large part because they're competing with temporary foreign workers for scarce entry-level jobs. All this is happening while the cost of housing is so high that many young Canadians aren't thinking about buying a house. And they wonder how they're going to get seen by a doctor if they need health care. And where have the Liberals been on this issue this summer? Absolutely nowhere. Nowhere. But thankfully, Conservatives have worked all summer, and today we are announcing the first in a series of major reforms that we will be demanding from the Liberal government to make sure that Canadian jobs go to Canadians. Unlike the Liberals, Conservatives aren't afraid to tackle the toughest issues facing young Canadians and Canadian workers head-on, including Canada's utterly broken immigration system. And now, to make this very hopeful announcement, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre.
Merci beaucoup, Michel. Merci de votre travail acharné. Merci à Garnet. Et surtout, merci aux gens qui sont ici aujourd'hui, qui veulent travailler, des Canadiens qui veulent avoir un emploi, qui veulent contribuer à notre pays, qui veulent ajouter à leurs habilités. C'était ça la promesse du Canada, que les jeunes adolescentes et les jeunes adultes pouvaient auparavant trouver un emploi pour ajouter à leur CV, à leur expérience et à leur donner l'occasion de rembourser leurs dettes de scolaire et de bâtir un bel avenir pour leur famille. Mais après 10 ans des libéraux, cette promesse est brisée. Le coût du logement a doublé. Le coût de nourriture augmente en flèche, sans contrôle. Et pour cette génération, il y a encore un autre problème, le chômage. Les jeunes ne peuvent pas trouver des emplois parce qu'en fait, le taux d'emploi pour nos jeunes est à son pire niveau depuis presque 30 ans. Et que font les libéraux? Ils augmentent les taxes et les impôts pour détruire des emplois. Ils bloquent des grands projets et ils donnent des emplois aux travailleurs de l'étranger, travailleurs temporaires de l'étranger. Et en même temps, M. Carney a promis qu'il allait être différent, qu'après 10 ans des échecs, après 10 ans de crise d'emploi, de coût de la vie, de criminalité, de l'immigration qu'a causé les libéraux, M. Carney allait être différent. En fait, il est pire que Justin Trudeau. Depuis son arrivée au pouvoir, c'est une promesse brisée après l'autre. Il a promis de tenir tête aux Américains dans le problème de tarifs. En fait, il a reculé. Il a promis de dépenser moins et investir plus. Dans la réalité, le gouvernement du Canada a augmenté ses dépenses de 8 % et les projections semblent indiquer que le déficit sera 2 fois plus élevé avec M. Carney que ça allait être avec Justin Trudeau. On voit moins d'investissements, 60 milliards de dollars d'investissements à quitter notre pays depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir de M. Carney. Il y a 6 mois, le Financial Post a dit que c'est la pire expulsion d'investissement dans une période de 5 mois dans l'histoire de notre pays. Tous les autres problèmes que M. Trudeau a causés sont maintenant pires avec M. Carney. La crise de logement augmente. En fait, maintenant, c'est trop coûteux pour des constructeurs de logements de construire. Et contrairement à la promesse de bâtir plus de logements, M. Carney, selon sa propre agence immobilière, va présider sur une baisse de construction de 13 % dans les 2 années à venir. Et parlant des grands projets, après 5 mois de M. Carney, il n'y a pas un seul projet qui a un permis de construction pour les intérêts nationaux. Il a fait que établir un bureau. Donc, ça va devenir de plus en plus mauvais. Mais le problème, c'est pire pour nos jeunes. Et pour les gens qui cherchent un emploi, il y a maintenant une crise de chômage qui a augmenté massivement depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir de M. Carney. Et regarde les faits. M. Carney a créé une situation où nos jeunes ne peuvent pas trouver un logement ni un emploi. 1,6 million de Canadiens sont chômeurs maintenant. Il y a une 7,4 % augmentation dans le nombre de Canadiens qui ont besoin d'assurance emploi. Il y a 16 000 Ontariens, plus d'Ontariens qui sont à la recherche d'un emploi que dans la grande récession. Et que fait les libéraux? Ils donnent ces emplois aux travailleurs temporaires de l'étranger. En fait, on voit à Tim Hortons, par exemple, ils ont engagé 131 % plus de travailleurs temporaires de l'étranger qu'il y a 4 ans. 1000 % plus. Le programme, maintenant, invite 74 % plus de travailleurs de l'étranger que c'était le cas en 2015 quand ils ont pris le pouvoir. Et cette année, les libéraux ont promis de restreindre le nombre de travailleurs temporaires de l'étranger à 82 %. Excusez-moi, à 82 000. Maintenant, c'est 105 000. Les conservateurs sont ici aujourd'hui afin d'annoncer une nouvelle politique pour mettre les travailleurs canadiens d'abord. Les emplois canadiens devraient aller aux travailleurs canadiens. C'est pourquoi des conservateurs demandent au gouvernement libéral d'abolir définitivement le programme des travailleurs étrangers temporaires et de cesser immédiatement de délivrer de nouveaux permis de travail temporaire de l'étranger aux nouveaux travailleurs. Les permis existants vont être progressivement supprimés jusqu'à ce que l'ensemble du programme soit définitivement aboli. Il va y avoir une transition un peu plus progressiste dans les régions avec des taux de chômage très bas. Si M. Carney souhaite vraiment réparer le système d'immigration que les libéraux ont détruit, son gouvernement devrait immédiatement mettre en œuvre ces changements. Les données sur l'emploi sont épouvantables. Les jeunes de 15 à 24 ans ont un taux de chômage de 14,6 %. 1,6 million de Canadiens sont sans emploi. Près de 400 000 Canadiens sont à la recherche d'emploi depuis plus de 2 ans, ce qui représente le taux de chômage de longue durée le plus élevé depuis 1998, en dehors de la pandémie, et plus élevé qu'il y a 30 ans. Il y a 16 000 Ontariens qui sont à la recherche de l'emploi, plus qu'il y avait dans la crise mondiale. Et le gouvernement Carney donne les emplois aux travailleurs de l'étranger. C'est épouvantable. L'année dernière, les libéraux ont brisé tous les raccords avec 171 000 travailleurs de l'étranger. Maintenant, ils sont en train de, si on suit le trajet établi dans les premiers 6 mois, encore de briser un autre record. Ça signifie qu'aujourd'hui, que le gouvernement Carney est en voie de battre un nouveau record pour les travailleurs étrangers temporaires, alors qu'on a déjà un grand nombre de nos jeunes qui ne peuvent pas trouver un emploi. Donc, nous demandons au gouvernement de mettre en œuvre ce changement immédiatement afin de mettre nos travailleurs canadiens d'abord. Nous allons proposer cette idée, mais c'est ça notre approche au Parlement en automne. On va proposer des vraies solutions et on va inviter les libéraux d'accepter nos idées, voler nos idées. Nous avons des meilleures idées. Nos priorités seront pouvoir d'achat plus élevé pour les Canadiens en réduisant les taxes et les impôts et l'inflation. Les rues sécuritaires en mettant les criminels en prison. Les frontières solides en appliquant les freins sur le système d'immigration et un Canada qui est autosuffisant en éliminant les taxes et les lois anti-développement pour ramener le 800 milliards de dollars d'investissement que les libéraux ont fait fuir de notre pays. Notre but, c'est de rétablir la promesse du Canada où chacun qui travaille fort pourrait avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison avec une vie abordable et sécuritaire sous notre fier drapeau. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Michelle Rempel and Garnet Jenis, for your hard work on behalf of Canadians. We're here to bring hope to the hopeless. We have behind us some very talented and hardworking people who cannot get jobs here in Canada. And let's be honest, young people today form what I call Generation Screwed. Let's look at the situation for this generation. It is the first generation that cannot afford a home in Canadian history. And now, the double gut punch. They have the highest, or the worst employment numbers of any group of young people since the late 1990s. So you can't get a job, and even if you did have a job, you can never buy a home after 10 years of Liberal government. The Liberals doubled housing costs. They unleashed crime and chaos in our communities with their soft laws. They broke our immigration system by allowing too many, too fast, too easily to come into the country. And they have destroyed our economy by pushing investment out of our country. Now, Mark Carney promised that he would be different. He has been worse than Justin Trudeau in almost every objective measurement. Let's go through the promises. He promised to build, baby, build. Well, far from doubling home building as he promised, home building is expected to drop by 13% according to his own housing agency. As for major national projects, 5 months in, and there's not a single national project that Mr. Carney has even identified, much less permitted, much less having shovels in the ground. Not one pipeline, not one mine, not one major expansion of a port. All we have is meetings, offices, new bureaucracies, new high-paid big shots with big salaries who have thus far achieved absolutely nothing. Crime continues to rage on our streets, with Mr. Carney keeping in place all of the catch-and-release Liberal laws. And Mr. Carney has kept all of Justin Trudeau's immigration numbers, which means the system gets worse and worse and worse. The time has come for decisive action. We have major problems in our job market. Let's look at the facts here. The unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 is now 14.6%. The employment rate, the share of young people who are employed, is at its lowest level in over a quarter century outside of the pandemic. 1.6 million Canadians were unemployed in July, 7.4% increase in unemployment insurance requests since Mr. Carney took office. Almost 400,000 Canadians have been continually searching for work for over 2 years, the highest share of long-term unemployment since 1998. There are 16,000 more people unemployed in Ontario than there were in the Great Recession. Ontario has seen a massive increase in job losses and a massive decrease in home building. Nearly 75% of temporary foreign workers that come into the country are for low-wage positions, which means they compete with working class and young people that ultimately drive down wages and drive away jobs. Tim Hortons has hired an unimaginable 1,131% more temporary foreign workers in the last 4 years. In the first half of this year alone, the TFW program has imported 74% more low-skilled labor than in all of 2015. TFWs, the number of temporary foreign workers, is now 2% of our overall workforce, and a staggering number, an unprecedented number. Now, the Liberals promised they would cap the temporary foreign worker program at 82,000, but in the first 6 months, they've already handed out 105,000 permits. To put this into perspective, if they do the same number of permits for temporary foreign workers in the next 6 months that they did in the last, they will break the record again with over 200,000 temporary foreign workers coming in to take jobs when our own young people are facing record unemployment. The Liberals have to answer, why is it that they're shutting our own youth out of jobs and replacing them with low-wage temporary foreign workers from poor countries who are ultimately being exploited? And let us say as well, the people, the individual temporary foreign workers, the workers themselves, they are not bad people. They are not the problem. They are being taken advantage of by liberal corporate elites who want to use them to drive down wages. And of course, we continue to support the dream of all immigrants to Canada, immigrants who come here to be Canadian, to get a job, work hard, contribute, and live a good life. That is part of the Canadian promise, and that is not what we're addressing here today. We're addressing a program that temporarily brings people from low-wage countries to replace Canadians and drive down the wages of our people. The time has come for decisive action to stop the Liberals from using our immigration system to pad the pockets of corporate elites and other insiders at the expense of Canadian jobs. Again, their principle is very simple. The principle is very simple. Canadian jobs for Canadian workers. Canada first, Canada always. That's why Conservatives are calling on the Carney government to permanently scrap the temporary foreign worker program and to stop issuing visas for any new temporary foreign workers coming into the country. Under this proposal, existing permits would be wound down until the program is entirely eliminated. Canadian jobs will go to Canadian workers first. It's time that Mr. Carney took the job seriously of repairing the damage that his party has done. Unfortunately, the immigration minister who destroyed the program and caused this mess is now Mark Carney's justice minister. You can believe it. He's now gone from creating a housing crisis as housing minister, an immigration crisis as immigration minister, to creating a crime crisis as justice minister. It's the same Liberal team with the same Liberal results, just a different face who's even worse than the last one. July's employment data has confirmed that what Mr. Carney's economy is doing to our youth. 14.6% unemployment, 1.6 million Canadians unemployed. According to CIBC, that the levels of employment are normally what you would see in a, quote, a recessionary period. Yet the Liberals are still bringing in the workers from abroad to take jobs from people here at home, and they are driving down wages. Nearly 3/4 of the temporary foreign workers in Canada do jobs that pay below average wages, which means that they are ultimately taking jobs from the people in Canada that need them most. These workers should not be demonized. They are being taken advantage of. Nor do we have a problem with immigrants who come here to build a family and start a life, pay their taxes, follow the rules, and integrate into the Canadian way of life. That should be the goal. But that is entirely different from what the Liberals are doing. Mark Carney is a self-described global elite, and he and his global elite friends believe in mass immigration that gives more power to corporate elites like him and less wages to the Canadian people. They win, the Liberal elites win and Canadian workers lose. But we can fix the problem. We're here with a solution. We want Canadian workers to have Canadian jobs. We want to bring back high wages. Our purpose for the fall session is stronger take-home pay with lower taxes, debt, and inflation, and by bringing jobs back to the Canadian people. Second, safer streets by locking up the criminals that Liberals have turned loose. Third, secure borders by hitting the brakes on immigration and reversing the damage Liberals have done. And fourth, a self-reliant Canada by removing Liberal taxes and red tape to bring home massive projects that will make us less reliant on the rest of the world. Stronger take-home pay, safer streets, secure borders, a self-reliant Canada. We're here to work with any party, and I'm encouraging Liberals, again, steal my ideas. These ideas are open source. We want every Canadian to have a chance to have a great job that buys them a beautiful life and a wonderful home on a safe street. That is our mission. We will work with anyone to do it, and as I'm demonstrating here today with the help of our incredible team, Michelle Rempel and Garnet Jenis, that we have proposals to fix the problems Liberals have met, to bring home the hopeful future for our country that our youth and all Canadians deserve. Thank you very much.
Now time for some questions. Hi, David Lau at CBC. I wanted to ask about temporary foreign workers. What have business leaders told you about why they felt that they needed TFWs, and why do you believe they can now do without these workers and still stay in business without raising prices?
Well, in most cases, I don't think they do need temporary foreign workers. I think they hire them because they can pay them less. And it's that simple. They don't want to pay the prevailing wage to the Canadian worker. And so they hire someone from abroad who might be in a desperate situation and willing to take less. And we see it again. Michelle Rempel has been tweeting out these job postings. I think it was it Booster Juice, the one you came out with yesterday? $36 an hour. They're Booster Juice offering $36 an hour to a temporary foreign worker. They specifically say they want it to be a temporary foreign worker. Why aren't they offering those jobs to Canadian kids first? And I'm not now speaking about any particular employer, but we know that there's a lot of abuse in this system where the employers are asking for some of the wage back from their worker. I'm not alleging that for Booster Juice, but it is happening out there. It is a very exploitative system that has allowed corporate elites to profit off of driving wages down and driving jobs out, and we're going to put an end to it. Canadian workers deserve Canadian jobs. Les élites coopératives veulent payer moins de salaire à nos travailleurs, et c'est pour ça qu'ils invitent des gens qui proviennent des pays très pauvres, qui sont prêts à accepter des salaires plus bas. Et je sais que ça, c'est bon pour leur profit, mais c'est très mauvais pour nos jeunes. Nous voulons que les emplois canadiens soient pour les travailleurs canadiens. Merci.
Bonjour,
Bonjour.
Marie de Radio-Canada.
Bonjour.
J'ai une question des collègues de Ottawa qui demandent, en fait, qui disent que le gouvernement Carney doit bientôt déposer un budget au mois d'octobre et on sait, le ministre a déjà demandé aux différents ministères de trouver des économies. Selon vous, quelle coupe budgétaire serait acceptable et est-ce qu'il y a des programmes qui seraient intouchables?
Tout d'abord, M. Carney n'a pas trouvé un sou en économie. Depuis son arrivée au pouvoir, il y a 5 mois, il n'y a pas un sou d'économie qu'il a annoncé. Au contraire, M. Carney a augmenté le coût de l'État de 8% avec la plupart des dépenses pour la bureaucratie et des consultants. Il y a une 33% augmentation dans le nombre de fonctionnaires qui gagnent plus de 100 000 $. Il y a une 37% augmentation dans le nombre d'argent dépensé sur des consultants à l'externe. M. Carney est encore plus coûteux que Justin Trudeau. Oublie les annonces. Oublie des lettres fuitées aux médias avec des buts de trouver des économies. Regardons les vrais chiffres. Selon les chiffres, le déficit de Mark Carney sera 2 fois plus important que celui de Justin Trudeau. Incroyable. Personne peut imaginer qu'un futur premier ministre pourrait être plus coûteux que Justin Trudeau, mais M. Carney a accompli ça. Ses dépenses sont hors de contrôle Et il fait exactement le contraire de ce qu'il promesse. Yes. So far, Mark Carney has not found a single penny in new savings. While he promised to spend less, in the 5 months he's been Prime Minister, he's increased the cost of the government by 8%. 33% more federal public servants are earning over $100,000 under Mark Carney. He's increased the cost of consultants by 37%. And if you believe economists, they calculate Mark Carney's deficit could be twice as big as Justin Trudeau's, which is unimaginable. No one thought it was possible to have a worse deficit than Trudeau, but Mark Carney appears to have accomplished it. What I would say to everyone is, ignore Mark Carney's speeches, the letters he writes his ministers, which then get conveniently leaked to the media. It doesn't matter what he says. It matters what he does. And the numbers are very stubborn things. They show that Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau, that the deficit is getting bigger, and that will mean more inflation and more economic ruin for our country. Mark Carney is not a change, he is worse. We need to cut consultants, bureaucracy, corporate welfare, foreign aid, handouts to fraudulent refugees, and other wasted money. We need to bring down the cost of government to bring down the cost of living with lower taxes, inflation, and debt. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Jaspreet from Omni News. Liberal government is intent to recognize Palestine as a state in this fall session. What's your take on it? Are you in favor or do you oppose this?
Mark Carney doesn't know where he stands. He first said he was going to recognize the Hamas state, and then the other day he said that he wasn't recognizing the Hamas state. So he seems very confused on the world stage. He has been, so far, at best irrelevant, and at worst a failure. Our priority here in Canada is standing up for this country and our jobs here at home. That is our focus. We are obviously not going to recognize Hamas as a state. That would be rewarding terrorism. But the focus of our foreign policy is to stand up for Canada and put our country and its interests first on the world stage. Thank you.
Hi, Ezra Levant from Rebel News. I thought it was very interesting about Booster Juice paying $36 an hour to a foreign worker. And I think a lot of Canadians don't know how pervasive this is, and that's an outrageous anecdote. I don't think the Liberals are going to accept your advice here, so I think your reforms wouldn't be able to bite until you become Prime Minister if that happens. But I think there is something you could do in the meantime. And let me ask you if you would consider this. I'm actually just doing some brainstorming here. Would you consider shining a spotlight using your bully pulpit on the worst offenders? For example, maybe a company that really wraps itself in the Canadian flag, like Tim Hortons. Would you consider having an event outside of Tim Hortons? Would you consider writing to the board of directors of RBI and the Brazilian hedge fund? And I guess what I'm saying is, there's no downside to these companies hiring foreign workers. But if there was a PR downside, if patriotic Canadians said, this is enough. I notice in the UK there's a lot of people waving British and English flags. It's their response to immigration crises. Would you consider naming and shaming in the public domain abusers of the TFW program?
Yes. And thank you for the question. Michelle Rempel has already begun the process. She's been publishing the most egregious cases of corporate elites profiting by shutting Canadians out of jobs in favor of low-wage temporary foreign workers. And Michelle, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure.
Come on over.
No, thanks for the question, Ezra. It's absolutely egregious that these companies expect that they can just maximize corporate profits on the backs of and at the expense of Canadian youth. It's a practice that has to end. We've been naming and shaming them all week. I want to thank my team for finding those examples, but I encourage Canadians to go and look for themselves. There's been websites that have been set up so that people can see what these companies are doing. But the more important thing is, Ezra, that the Liberals are letting them do this. The Liberals are totally letting them do this. You know, Lena Diab, where was she this summer, the immigration minister? Did she name and shame any of these people? No, she didn't. And that's why we're here today. We're standing up for the people that are behind us. Enough is enough. Canadian jobs have to go to Canadians.
Great job.
And this will be our final question of the day.
Rami Watros, Oxygen Media. We have seen the negotiations with the US side about the tariff, and we see that the current Canadian government will not retaliate the tariff, and we would like to know what's your opinion, how this will affect our labor market, especially that the American products will be more cheaper and will operate more plants for the US than the Canadian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let me say that we have to put our country first. I'm willing to work with anybody from any party to help get Canada fair treatment and an end to the tariffs by both China and the United States. And I've told the Prime Minister I'm happy to work with him anytime he believes that we can be helpful in ending the dispute and restoring free trade. Conservatives will do it because we want our country to succeed. The reality is that Mark Carney is failing. First of all, he's broken every promise that he made during the election. He promised elbows up, he's been elbows down. He promised he would have dollar-for-dollar tariffs. Whether or not you agree with that idea, it's clear that that was his promise, while he was simultaneously backing down. He promised that he would get a deal with President Trump by July the 21st. There has been no deal. He said that he could, quote, negotiate a win. So far, all he's been doing is losing and conceding defeat. He said he could handle Donald Trump, but ever since he became Prime Minister, he's been bullied and pushed around. And now China sees weakness. They see weakness in Mark Carney, so they're hitting our farmers and fish harvesters with tariffs that are killing jobs and harming our people. Mark Carney is failing abroad, and Canadians are paying the price at home. My goal would be to get rid of all the tariffs on both sides of the border, to get a deal that will secure our continent through solid military investments, at the same time as regaining the previous open market access that we had to the biggest and most lucrative economy in the world, that being the United States. That's going to take hard work. But I will conclude by saying this. The tariffs that are being imposed on Canadian workers, the worst tariffs, are by Mark Carney himself. An industrial carbon tax that he wants to hit our steel workers, aluminum workers, oil and gas, cement, and fertilizer workers with. That's a Liberal tax on Canadian exporters. The Liberal high business tax, it's a Canadian tax on Canadian businesses. The high payroll taxes, this is Liberal taxes. The C-69, which blocks us from producing our resources and shipping them overseas, these are all policies that Mark Carney and the Liberals are imposing on our businesses, and that is why our economy is collapsing. We've had $62 billion of net investment leave Canada since Mark Carney became Prime Minister, the biggest, the worst in any 5-month period in the history of our country. Our economy is shrinking under Mark Carney. We're bleeding and hemorrhaging jobs. Mark Carney is failing to live up to the promises that he made. We're going to work hard to reverse that in this fall session. We hope that he will steal our much superior ideas to open our country for business, lower taxes, export our goods abroad, and bring home a strong, solid, sovereign Canadian economy.
That concludes today's announcement. Thank you so much for
coming.
coming.
Thank you very much.